Now for our final keynote presentation of the conference on one of the most exciting topics for modern day HR on technology as a HR transformation driver. So work as we know it has dramatically changed. The digital workplace became the organization for many people during the pandemic. And this session will look at the biggest HR tech challenges and lessons learned dealing with COVID-19. And to present this, please welcome Jad Ibrahim, the VP Support Services, Shade.
Thank you. I can hear myself. Wonderful. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well, and I give you kudos for still being here after 2 days of HR. And to start us off, I would like everyone to please stand up. Everybody stand up. And I would like the people in the back half to migrate forward so we can have a little more of an engaging conversation. And while everyone in the back is doing that, everyone in the front can shake the hips around, stretch out a little bit, loosen up. We are almost done with this. Come on forward, don't be shy. You in the blue, let's go. Please have a seat once you are ready, and we will begin. So my job as the VP of Support Services in Shade Corporation is to do things differently, is to make what we do in Shade, we're a construction company, innovate it in a different way from the support services side, tailored towards our operation. And with that being said and done comes the subject at hand, transforming HR in a technological way, in a digital way. We've had many great speakers today. I'm not sure what happened. Okay, maybe not. Very well. We've had many great speakers with ample backgrounds, and I want to thank Informa Connect for bringing us all together to share that. And to cap off the event and be the final keynote, I'm hoping to sort of gather a bunch of the ideas that were discussed earlier on and try to introduce some new concepts that you would at least walk away with one new piece of information. And for me, that would be a success. So moving forward, we are going to be talking about why transform HR, right? Then we're going to be talking about the implementation challenges and success factors. This has been done before. There's been a lot of companies that have done this and failed. Why should you go through these same hurdles again? And so many companies are doing it now, and you might realize that I missed certain factors that I need to go back and reassess. And that's what we're going to be highlighting today. And finally, we're going to be talking about deep dive into some 4 specific technologies that have to do with digitalization of, in specific, the recruitment component, just so that we can sort of see the full elaborate A to Z concept and how technology is changing us from more than what we know and what we're doing today. So what is the transformation of HR? A lot of people outside of HR might give you this generic description. If you do a simple Google search, you'll get something as simple a concept as automation. Digitize, automate, do things in a different way. And I truly believe that this is a misleading because it's much more vast. The transformation process truly brings in a lot of players into the subject. And what I'm talking about is people not only in HR, people outside. It's, again, speaking about agile. We learned a new term today from my previous presenter, to be adaptable, right? So we have to adapt as well and bring in all that together. And there is a famous quote by George Westerman. He is an MIT research scientist. And I think this quote truly depicts the misalignment that people have with HR digital transformations. And basically, it's when digital transformation is done right, you have a caterpillar that transforms into a butterfly. But when it's done wrong, all you're going to end up with is a very fast caterpillar. And if you break that down, the latter half is very straightforward. You come in and you have a performance evaluations. You used to bring in the paper, call the managers in. They used to do it in person, and it takes a long time. And all of a sudden you digitize it, so obviously you make it go faster. But what have you done with the time that now you've saved? And this is where the transformation component comes in. The butterfly does that same quickness that the fast caterpillar does, but it's flourished, it's evolved, it's changed the image and the brand of your company. And that is one of the key points of our discussions throughout the past couple of days, is how do we transform HR to have more added value than to just your employees, but to the entire company. So again, why do we do it? First key point, generic. We automate, we do things faster so we don't have to repeat it over and over again. Another point that hasn't really been touched upon or isn't touched upon frequently is the user experience, enhancing it. We're in a new world, a new generation, where if your employees are not excited about what they're trying to do within HR, you will never get their buy-in. Finally, those two components, they free up your time. You've got all this ample time now to do what? Some may go and have extended lunch breaks and just continuously not do anything of added value. But here's where you have to strategize and try to regain the human aspect of human resources, the human aspect, right? Over the past few years of working in this domain in Saudi, and I've noticed when speaking with other colleagues, is that a lot of outsiders from the domain of HR, they believe that HR is the typical administrative component of send out a contract, do a performance evaluation, and just send in a disciplinary action form, give them a violation. And that is the concept of many people from executive level all the way down. They believe this is what HR does. And that is the skewed component. So now imagine where by making things go much faster, you are there to strategize, to truly find out why this employee that is not showing up for work, why is he not coming up? You have time to figure that out. If someone is not performing well, you will have time to go lift up your sleeves and truly get engaged and find out what makes your employees tick. And so with that, we in HR have to change our mindset and our concept to be performance coaches, performance drivers. Once your operations managers figure out that I can rely on my HR to come in and figure out why my people are not performing, you have now regained their trust as a department. You have now, again, a seat at the table, and you can now be an added value for your company. All of this transformation links back to one thing. What can you do in HR to make your company better, more successful, more efficient, save cost, and improve their bottom line, their P&L? So a lot of things have happened over the years. The past 2 decades have been very tech-based. And there's key components that come up with a digital transformation and what's required. And to start that off is that you need to figure out your purpose, your reason. Identify a mission or a goal, and that is where you have to start off. Because if you don't do that, in all reality, you're just going to be, again, lost. You're going to, if your intentions of digitizing is because your competitor's doing it, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. So you have to figure out a couple things to really deep dive into your entity. You need to figure out the culture of your company. You need to really understand, what is your business? What are you trying to do? What is your purpose? And now, what do you truly need to make your business better? So once you figure out these 4 components, you can then start figuring out the business impact that you need technology to do for you. And once you do that, you can finally generate your mission statement, your goal, your digital mission goal, because this is going to be important in the next chapter of where identifying who your stakeholders are and get their buy-in. Because like has been mentioned before, change is difficult. Change is never really accepted by many. And so you need to get their buy-in. The way you get the buy-in is going to be variable based off of who you're talking to, where you are in the transformation process. So I've broken down the process into these 3 phases: pre-transformation, transformation, and end user digital engagement. So in the first phase, pre-transformation, you take that mission, that digital mission for HR transformation, and you will use that to basically talk to your executives, your C-suite, your owners, your directors, and you get their buy-in. Because if they don't understand it, they're never going to be able to give you the green light to do it. They're the doorkeepers here. And the problem is there's a study that was performed by MIT and Deloitte. And that study says that 85% of the people that were in that study believed that their executives were not qualified to do or to lead the digital transformation strategically. So think about it, 85% of your company does not believe the people that are currently there can do the job. So the first thing you have to do in HR is to get the buy-in of your executives, is to train them and explain to them what it is, the added value. And that's the first phase and the stakeholders involved there. The second one is during your transformation process. This will not be done single-handedly. It's going to have to require a diverse technical background, people from the IT tech realm, people from HR, executives, employees that are just using the system. If they're not bought into the system, how can they develop the system that you're going to use for the future? So that's where you have to focus on, how do I get their buy-in so they can deliver the material and the product that we want to transform us in the right direction. And although this is the third step, the end user digital enablement, this is actually something that you have to consider throughout your first two. Because you have to figure out what the end user wants. Because again, if they're not bought into it, they're never going to use the platform in the way that you want it, or they may not use it at all. That means the time and energy and resources you've put into the system have become obsolete and a waste. So when you bring that on, the next component is to prioritize your ideas. And I have a very raw version of an effort versus impact diagram. And I intentionally chose one that is handwritten to show you the simplicity of this subject, but at the same time, the importance of it. Because the bottom line is that if you're going to walk into an apple orchard, I know there aren't very many in Saudi, are you going to go for the highest hanging fruit where you have to get a ladder, use that ladder to go up and pick the one on top, or are you going to pick the lowest one that's nice and ripe? For that same concept is why we're going to be dealing with the top left corner. We're going to be looking for something that has the highest impact on the company, that is going to affect our bottom line with the least amount of effort. Something for free, something that requires just a few hours or X amount of budget. And this will easily allow there to be buy-in. Moving forward, focus on your touch points. You can identify the touch points that you have with all stakeholders. These are some examples of the ones that you have with your employees. So if you can focus on touch points, this is where you're going to be getting an impact, because our function in HR is to serve our customers, in which we've redefined our customer base over the past few years to not just be our employees, but everything there else. So focusing on the employees, if you focus on those touch points and you change their experience, you're going to get better performance and better user engagement. Again, very quickly, there's no I in team. This requires a team effort. The more people you bring into the table, the better conversations you have, the more likely you're going to have a better transformation, a better product, because it's going to be well thought of. If you just bring in the CEO or the head of HR, you're very siloed out. You're going to release something that is not going to be applicable to your operation potentially. Another key component, I think, is relatively straightforward. You're here to do a transformation, a change. And if you can't measure it, you can't measure where you are today and where you're going to be in the future. If you can't find a system that's going to do that for you and give you that information immediately on the spot, if you're going to have to spend 3-4 days to get information from this platform and that platform, you're in it for the wrong reasons and you're not doing it right, and you're destined to not have a successful transformation. Obviously, choose the right solution, bring the right people to the table, IT, HR. Don't be a sucker to the most basic concepts of, I'm going to go with the cheapest solution, or I'm going to go with the one that has all the bells and whistles. Even though it's premium, I'm going to get it. You have to figure out what works best for you and find that balance between functionality, user experience, cost, security, etc. Because not everything works, not everything will work. Obviously, the keyword for the past couple of days is figure out your culture. A lot of people have said, enhance your culture, become digital, become agile, become innovative, become digital, all the above. The question is how? What can we do in HR to actually do that? We've heard these terms repeated over and over and over again, but where's the how component? And so with this, we have to rethink the way we do HR. Treat and speak with your employees with intelligence, as if they're intelligent human beings, and with transparency. Transparency alone will go a long way to get the buy-in of your employees into whatever else that you want to do. They need to know and understand what the future holds for them. It develops job security for them. They can understand the vision of the company and support it, be creative, think outside the box. You start engaging them. And with that being said, you can help develop this improvement, continuous improvement concept that's required in a transformation. But in order to do all that, I take you to the last point that's on here, is you need to change and build new habits. And for that, I recommend that you all, if you get a chance, or if you have not read a book by Charles Duhigg called The Power of Habit. It introduces a concept called the habit loop, which consists of 3 steps. You have the trigger, the routine, and you have the reward. So to break it down, you're watching TV, you see a chocolate commercial. That is your trigger. You start imagining subconsciously this wonderful, satisfying piece of chocolate and the indulgence you have eating it. Your mind subconsciously goes through a routine to go downstairs, open up the fridge in the kitchen, and splurge into your favorite chocolate. So now to change this habit, you need to focus on the routine and change your routine from when the trigger hits, because the routine happens subconsciously. So you consciously have to focus on changing it. So now bringing that back to digital transformation in HR. You are now going to be introducing a new concept, a new way of doing things. You used to make contracts that were triggered by your recruitment team saying, we have a potential candidate, please draft this contract. So they come in, they open up their salary scale, and then they, whether it's manual or online, and then they fill in the information manually, and then they do all of that in the ways that you typically do it. But now you're saying, hey, I want you to do it completely differently. They may not be bought into it. So what you have to focus on is when you implement this transformation or this change, from the very beginning, you need to make sure that you are on top of it, to make sure they're doing it right, they're doing it with the right intentions. And that is how you start changing the habits that you had previously by changing the routine. So next time they get a contract, they by default think about the reward of completing X amount per day, and they'll follow the routine that you taught them subconsciously. But it takes effort at first, and that's where HR comes in. Why worry? Why worry is because you have infographics like this on the internet that are there because of science and research that are done. Because traditionally speaking, what you see in the center is the normal mindset that we've been dealing with over the past probably century. Two people working on a desk with a laptop, etc. And this is their workspace. They work. But the new generation that we're going to be dealing with, whether Gen Y, Gen X, Gen Z, they are going to be wanting to do exactly what the gentleman on the top left is doing. Sit with his feet crossed in a park, enjoying the view somewhere in the US, while on the right is having some sort of accolade for a sports team that's done through the company. This is the engagement that you need to start thinking about. This is what your employees want. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of research that supports this. So if you don't do it now, and if you've done it, great, but if you haven't, you need to start getting on the concept to revamp your entire process, but think digitally. How can I do it so I can keep my people engaged so they can have time to play sports and work remotely and still get the job done efficiently and effectively in a better way they were doing it while they were in the office? I'm not going to go through the details of this. This was published in a McKinsey report about the new way we do work. And I want you to focus on the right side with the red box, and you'll see the keywords we've been hearing for the past 2 days: agile, digital, and to innovate, right? And this is what we need to start doing. And if you haven't done it, you need to do it. And if you are doing it, rethink the way you do it to make sure you're including everything. And last but not least, talent. Do you have the right talent? There's a big gap between the tech team and HR. They have different backgrounds. They don't know anything about organizational development. And as we don't know anything in HR about APIs and integrations, etc. So we need to educate and make sure that we can have that communication. Because that is probably the most difficult thing, is that if you can't communicate, we can't get it done. In a similar concept, we need to identify who your HR digital leaders. You need to identify the people that can talk business, that can talk HR, the ones that can talk organizational development, and the ones that can talk finance. These don't have to be executives or managers. You can find people that are supervisors, administrators, officers. Find these people and let them be the ones that lead your change. And that is probably one of the hardest things to do. And if all else fails, you don't have any of the above, again, you upskill, you teach, and if you don't have the time or energy to do that, then you have to hire the right people to lead this change for you. I push away from dealing with consultants because they will give you a cookie cutter that will not give you what you want. I'd rather you hire someone that worked in a consulting company to be your employee and lead this change for you than to deal with the stuff that they have. Because again, you go back to slide number 1, understand your company, your needs, your people, your culture. No consultant will do that. Last but not least, please do not skip a step. You skip a step, you will have some sort of disadvantage in the future. How many of you guys cook or have cooked or baked bread? Do we all know what happens when you don't put yeast in bread? It doesn't rise. So if you skip any of these steps, you will get a product of some sort. You will get some sort of bread. But will it have that same transformation that's required for this bread to rise, look pretty, smell right, have the right texture? If you mess around with the ingredients for success, again, we're not creating something new. These have been tested and tried, and people failed, and they've shared their knowledge. So if you're in the middle of your transformation and you haven't done any of these steps properly, please go back, revisit it where you are right now before you end up wasting more time and resources moving forward. Now, to spice things up a little bit, we're going to be looking at some tech that is around, which I call the future, but the future is actually here. So typically speaking, I guarantee almost every person here is familiar with every single company that is on here, because in one way, shape, or form, you've been digitized by them, and some people have been transformed, maybe not in the all-inclusive holistic concept, but we have, over the past 2 decades, transformed because of the digitization that these products have given you. So AI is the next step for us. The majority of people use the stuff that were on the previous screen. You had applicant tracking systems from the HR concept. You had word processors. You had ERP systems such as Oracle and Dynamics. That's all the digitization automating. Step number 1 of why people do it. So I've broken the digitization concept into 3. If you're a company just starting to do it, typically you deal with the short term, where we just automate things to go faster. And then you go to the medium term, the augmentation of your digitization, which is the self-learning activities, et cetera. And then finally, once you've done all of that and you're in somewhat an optimal perspective of operation, you start amplifying. And that's usually the long-term vision that people have when they digitize. And that's when we're talking about decision-making, autonomous vehicles, et cetera. This concept here, to put it to an HR perspective, you hire a new employee and you need someone to pick them up from the airport. Your autonomous vehicle picks them up, drops them off. Your reception is a robot that is engaging with them and having a conversation. And before they even step foot in your office, they have an avatar that has already given the full experience of what your company is. So this is, again, the long-term vision. And different companies are in different phases of this digitization. And like we saw, Aramco is probably already in the amplify long-term. But that's because they've already tried and tested the first 2. So figure out where you are. Don't overstep yourself. Don't think that I need to get a robot before I have even done the predecessors that I've mentioned. Natural growth is always the best way to go. So I'm going to introduce to you Textio. And it's a short video that introduces a new way of communication. And I think it will be of much added value in this region, and I'll explain why. But without further ado, Textio.
We created Textio to get beyond guessing. Our core technology, augmented writing, uses machine intelligence to help you choose the right words to get a positive response. As I type, Textio compares my language to what's been written in millions of other documents to show me how it stacks up. For instance, using the orange phrase highlighted here will make this job listing perform worse. Textio can even write for me. When I press Tab, Textio generates language that is proven to work in this context. And it's learned from my company's writing, so it sounds like me. Textio also helps me write inclusively, for instance, showing me how my writing will appeal to people from different age groups or gender identities. It's all based on a data feedback loop. You write with Textio, and the way your audience responds powers the continuous improvement of Textio's learning loop. The more you use it, the smarter it gets.
So that is Textio. And was the sound clear? I'm not sure if it was or not, but I'm sure that many of you have received emails that don't make sense. You're like, why does this person have cap locks? Like, why are there 10 exclamation marks? Why is this person screaming? Why are they using this word? It's sexist. So imagine you have an AI technology embedded into your word processor, into your emails, that as you're writing something, it will tell you that, hey, this word is too aggressive, this word is sexist. So that way the other party does not have to be offended. So imagine using this now when you're trying to recruit a new talent. You now make sure that the people that are working in Saudi are typically of different backgrounds, different levels of English, and we all use English predominantly as a business language. So now all of these people can now speak in a professional way that is not insulting or demeaning or sexist in a certain way. Now imagine adding that to your day-to-day operations. The complaints that you might be getting for investigations, etc., should be decreasing. And this is all happening live. Machine learning understands what's been going on in your entire operation and figures that out. So that is Textio. The next one is my interview. We've all been doing interviews over the past year and a half, injected by COVID through Zoom, Teams, etc. And that saved a lot of time for transportation, moving, people waiting in the lobby for all the candidates to come through. But imagine you have a software that will allow you to do all your pre-HR interviews and using AI, analyze and give you feedback before you even pick up the phone and say hello. And this is my interview, and so forgive me for the boring concept of it, but I want to give you the user experience, and this is my interview with my voice. Are you ready? This is my interview. It is here to solve the problems that typically come from HR pre-interviews. You typically spend a lot of time trying to get them done, and at the same time, there's concerns about being biased. So what happens here is that you log in and you set yourself up and you answer the first question that comes with your pre-HR interview. As you'll see, there's multiple questions and time limit for each one. So we'll go ahead and we'll answer the first question. Hi, my name is Jad. Once you go through all the questions, it gets submitted on over to the HR staff. And once that's done, it goes into the database, and the artificial intelligence that comes through creates a dashboard in which the artificial intelligence, based off of your body language, will make recommendations on your personality. In addition, based off of what you're saying, you will be able to search and filter and for candidates that speak and say certain words or things that are key for a certain position, and it will give recommendations based off of your statements for your skill levels. So imagine the time that you will have, instead of wasting doing pre-HR interviews that ask the same questions, that you are trying to read body language, etc., to figure out if they're going to be a perfect fit into your company, if they are touching up on the key points that you want to hear, all of a sudden is now done through AI. And obviously the same concept of self-learning, it'll figure out what to do and make recommendations. So that is my interview of changing the interview component of recruitment and talent acquisition. Next up is TALA. I don't have a fancy video for you, but TALA has the concept of chatbots that we've seen throughout many companies, but a lot of people don't know that how the AI works behind it. And so TALA is sutured towards HR in the sense of where when you have all these frequently asked questions that take up the time of your personnel or a new employee during onboarding, they ask the same questions. How do I get to here? If I need this, who do I speak with? And your team, you need to have someone readily available, and you have all the current KPIs and SLAs to figure out how much time you need to respond back to everyone. And you end up having an enormous team to get all this done. So now you take all these frequently asked questions, put them in a database, and they're answered in a certain way, shape, or form as questions come in, and you answer them one time. And machine learning, the AI concept of it, takes the questions that are asked by person X, Y, and Z, each in their own nature, and figures out that and pushes forward the answer. And if it doesn't know the answer, it tells you, give me a minute, I'll get back to you, forwards over to your HR consultants, and all of a sudden you have an answer that is unified. You don't have to worry about people answering different things. It is just one set of answers. Finally, I have Pymetrics. Pymetrics uses a concept that's been trending lately called gamification. For those that don't know gamification, it's the concept of using video games to enable and engage your employees. So it's taken gamification, combined it with AI to be able to help you with your sourcing.
Our mission is to help level the playing field and remove bias from the hiring process by providing more accurate, predictive, and objective data to match you to your best fit job. We've reinvented the candidate experience so that every job seeker gets personalized feedback and isn't judged solely on their resume. That means you won't be left in limbo and might learn something valuable. The company you're applying to right now has partnered with us to provide additional objective insights into your fit for the role. We're all unique, so let's find out what's special about you. In a few moments, you'll be playing a series of interactive games that measure what characteristics make you, you. People within the organization you're applying to have played them too. Each game takes about 2 to 3 minutes, and the whole process takes about 30 minutes to complete. Pymetrics isn't a test, it's a matching engine. There are no right or wrong answers, and you can't fail. Just like no two people are the same, no two roles at any company are the same. Every role is different. So if you don't match with this one, we'll match you to others that are a better fit. So be yourself and find a comfortable spot. Avoid distractions or input from anyone else, and play the games at a time of day when you're alert. When you play Pymetrics games, your emotional and behavioral attributes are measured across several categories that are based on decades of neuroscience research. When you're finished, the results are shared with you in a personalized report, giving you a better understanding of what makes you unique.
So Pymetrics, emotional attributes that are identified, and before someone steps into your office as a new recruit, you can now determine that the time and effort that you and your management team have been spending to create a certain culture, a certain way of thinking in your entity, can now, in a AI way, be predetermined before they even step foot to see if they're a good match, and both of you know. And so whether they're a good match in your department or your section or your company, you have that information just by analyzing the way they think using the concepts of gamification. So while all these great content technological advances that are out there in the market, you can do a lot of research and find so much more. Because again, the AI concept is no longer the future that's far-reaching. We are in the present, to be honest with you. But now it's a matter of using these and finding these softwares that are typically independent. So my reservation that I have is that while using these independent softwares, you end up having an integration issue typically, where you have an ERP system such as Oracle, Dynamics, etc., that you have your core. The core of your business is all there, unified, streamless, digitized, no more paperwork, no more people taking things around from A to B. And now you introduce this AI software in which you have to sit there and, for example, put the same employee information in this software that you already have in your core. So that's double work. Double work defeats the purpose of digitization. So make sure that you can integrate, and if not, make sure that the cost-benefit analysis that you have for this new software supersedes or is better than the cost that you're going to be doing to do these things twice. And final thoughts on this entire subject. And you need to keep in mind that tech is disrupting HR. We all know it. It's been doing so for the past two generations, but we need to focus back on the human side. That is what this technology is allowing us to do. Give us more time. Give us more time, not to do more of the same thing, but give us more time to really figure out what is making people tick to perform well, so we can change the way that we serve our company to benefit their bottom line. And this is, again, a continuous transformation. It will never stop. Once you do it, you continuously improve. So don't think that, all right, I've got a deadline of 2 years or 1 month to be digitally transformed. Again, there's no cookie cutter solution. You can't hire consultant X or bring on company Y to get the job done. You guys have to do it in-house. It's going to take time, but again, hopefully you can transform your business and not just make it go faster. Thank you. I know it's the end of the day. I don't know if we have time for questions or not, but if you have any questions, by all means, and if not, you can probably see me on the side and we can answer away. All right, thank you.
I would like to thank Jad for his presentation. And of course, that was the last session for today. It has been an absolutely amazing journey. And the 2 days were extremely, extremely useful in terms of learning from these expert speakers. And really grateful that you all could make it. And thank you for all your support for this event. We're honored to have your gracious presence, and we take pride in hosting you at this one-of-a-kind initiative. And of course, all our sponsors as well, we would like to thank them, and partners without whom this event would have not been possible. And this is it for now, ladies and gentlemen. Lunch will be served at the Mosaic restaurant on the ground floor. And so please feel free to visit our exhibitors and take part in the seminar room sessions after lunch. And thanks a lot once again. And it was really an enriching experience. Until next year, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.